Thank you, God, for what isn't here yet. Sit with that for a moment. Not as a wish, not as a plea, not as spiritual hope wrapped in trembling hands, but as an act of gratitude for something that has not yet arrived in the world that others see. If that sounds strange to you, or contradictory, or like wishful thinking dressed up in prayer, then you are exactly where you need to be right now. Because what I am about to share with you is not a beginner's practice. This is not about gratitude lists or counting blessings or feeling thankful for what you already have. This is something far more powerful. This is about becoming so aware of the creative authority you possess that you dare to give thanks for the invisible. You dare to feel grateful for what has no evidence. You dare to thank God for the thing that hasn't happened yet. And in doing so, you call it into being better, the thing that hasn't happened yet. And in doing so, you call it into being. Not because you tricked yourself into feeling better, but because you claim the state in which that thing already is. Let me say it plainly. When you feel genuine gratitude for something that has not yet appeared, you are not lying to yourself. You are not pretending. You are occupying the state of the wish fulfilled. You are standing in the end. And consciousness, being the only reality, must harden into fact what you are conscious of being. This is not positive thinking. This is creation itself. And tonight, I want to show you how to do it, not as theory, not as metaphor, but as the daily practice that changes everything. Welcome. If you're new here, this channel is dedicated entirely to the teachings of Neville Goddard, one of the most profound mystics and teachers of consciousness the modern world has known. Everything shared here draws from his lectures, his lived experience of the law. Today in this episode, we are going to explore what I consider one of the most advanced and misunderstood practices in all of Neville's work, gratitude for the unseen. Gratitude as a state of consciousness. Gratitude not as response to what is, but as the foundation of what will be. By the end of this episode, you will understand why thanking God for what isn't here yet is not his tea, but the highest form of creative authority. You will know how to practice it, and you will never think of gratitude the same way again. Let me begin here. Most of the world lives in a state of reaction. Something good happens, and they feel grateful. Something bad happens, and they feel anxious or resentful. The entire emotional landscape is dictated by outer conditions. That is the natural man, as Neville would say. That is the man who does not yet know who he is. And there is no judgment in that. Most of us begin there. But you are not here to remain there. You are here because something in you has stirred. Something in you knows that consciousness is primary, but the outer world is secondary, and that you are not at the mercy of facts. You are their creator. Now, when you first encounter Neville's teachings, the instruction is simple. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Live in the end. Feel as though you already are what you want to be, or already have what you want to have. And in the beginning, that practice often takes the form of imaginal acts. You close your eyes. You construct a scene that implies your desire is fulfilled. You loop it, you feel it, you fall asleep in it, and that is powerful. That works. Neville gave us that method because it is direct, it is repeatable, and it bypasses the reasoning mind. But here is what happens as you go deeper. You begin to realize that the imaginal act is not the end. It is a tool to bring you into a state, and the state is what creates. The state is what you are trying to occupy. The scene is just the bridge. So what is a state? A state is a fixed attitude of mind. A state is a habitual inner conversation. A state is the sum total of what you are conscious of being in any given moment. And here is the key. Every state has a feeling tone. The state of wealth feels a certain way. The state of wealth feels a certain way. The state of health, the state of freedom, the state of success. Each one has its own emotional atmosphere. And when you enter that state, when you wear it like a suit of clothes, the world must reflect it. Because the world is yourself pushed out. Always, without exception. Now, one of the most reliable indicators that you are truly in a state, not just visiting it in your imagination, is gratitude. Not effortful gratitude. Not manufactured thankfulness, but the natural, spontaneous gratitude that arises when something is yours. Think about it. When something truly belongs to you, when it is a settled fact in your life, you feel grateful for it. Not constantly, not obsessively, but quietly, deeply. You do not worry about whether it will stay. You do not anxiously check to see if it is still there. You simply live from it. And every now and then, a wave of thankfulness moves through you. That is what I am talking about. That is the gratitude of the state. So here is the leap Neville is asking you to make. If gratitude is the natural tone of having, and if consciousness creates reality, then gratitude for the thing not yet seen is not a trick. It is the state itself. It is you claiming ownership before the mirror of the world shows it to you. It is you saying, "This is mine," not because I see it, but because I am it, and I am grateful. Let me take you into this more deeply. In his 1948 lectures, Neville spoke often about the importance of feeling. He said, "Feeling is the secret." He said, "You must make your future dream a present fact by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled." And many people focus on the first half of that sentence. They focus on the assumption, the scene, the technique. But Neville was pointing to something deeper. He was pointing to the feeling. And what is the feeling of the wish fulfilled? It is relief. It is satisfaction. It is peace. And yes, it is gratitude. Because when you have what you want, you are grateful. Not because you worked for it. Not because you earned it. But because it is yours. Now I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking, "But I do not have it yet. How can I be grateful for something that isn't here?" That feels like lying. That feels like denial. And I understand that objection, because I once felt it myself. But here is the truth Neville kept repeating in 100 different ways. The invisible is more real than the visible. Consciousness is the only reality. The world you see is a shadow, a delayed reflection of states you have already occupied. What you call the future is not something coming toward you. It is something you are selecting now, by the state you occupy now. So when you feel grateful for what you do not yet see, you are not being dishonest. You are being cosmically accurate. You are acknowledging the only reality there is, which is consciousness. You are being cosmically accurate. You are acknowledging the only reality there was. You are saying, "In this state I already have it. And because I have it in consciousness, I have it in truth." The outer fact will follow. Let me tell you a story. A woman once came to one of Neville's lectures. She had been trying to manifest a very specific thing for months. She had done her scenes. She had revised her past. She had worked on her self-concept. And nothing was moving. She was beginning to doubt. She was beginning to feel desperate. And desperation, as you know, is a state. It is the state of lack. And as long as she was in that state, no technique would save her. So Neville gave her very simple advice. He said, "Stop asking. Stop begging. Stop hoping. Instead, tonight as you close your eyes, do not imagine the thing coming to you. Imagine it already here, and feel grateful, feel the gratitude you would feel if it had already arrived this morning. Thank God for it, not as a future event, as a present fact." She did not understand it fully, but she trusted him. As a pet, that night she lay in bed and whispered, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Not with her mind, but with her feeling. She felt the relief of having. She felt the quiet joy of answered prayer, and she fell asleep in that feeling. Within 2 weeks, the thing she had been chasing for months appeared in her world, effortlessly, naturally, as though it had always been on its way. Now what happened? Did God hear her gratitude and reward her? No. That would still be treating God as something outside of herself. What happened is that she shifted states. She stopped living in the state of wanting, which always implies separation, and she entered the state of having, which is completion. And gratitude was the feeling that carried her there. Gratitude was the signature of the state. So when she felt it genuinely, she was no longer trying to get something. She was living from the consciousness of already possessing it. And consciousness, being the only reality, outpictured that state in her world. This is what I mean when I say that gratitude for the unseen is not a beginner's trick. It is the natural overflow of a mature understanding of who you are. It is not something you do to get. It is something you feel because you already are. It is not something you do to get. It is recognition of the truth that your desire, the moment it is born in you, already exists in the invisible. It already is, and your only task is to appropriate it, to claim it, to live in the consciousness of its presence. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is to feel grateful for it now. Think about what gratitude actually is. Gratitude is the feeling of having received. It is the emotional acknowledgement of possession. It is not hope. It is not longing. It is fulfillment. So when you cultivate gratitude for the thing you desire, you are not waiting for it anymore. You are living from it anymore. You are living from it. You are standing in the end. And that is the entire teaching. That is the law. Do not wait for the world to change and then feel grateful. Feel grateful. And the world must change, because the world has no power of its own. It is a mirror, and it must reflect the state you occupy. Now I want to go deeper into why this works. And to do that, we need to talk about assumption. Neville said, assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, and observe the route that your assumption will take to fulfill itself. He also said, an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. Those two statements contain the entire mystery. You do not assume something because it is true. You assume it, and it becomes true. Assumption is not observation. It is creation. And what is the most powerful assumption you can make? That your desire is already fulfilled, that it is already done, that it is already yours. And how do you make that assumption real in your own consciousness? You feel from it. You think from it. You thank God from it. Let me ask you this. If you truly believed, deeply, unshakably, that your desire was already secured, already on its way, already a settled fact in the invisible, how would you feel? You would feel peaceful. You would feel light. You would feel peaceful. You would feel light. You would feel, not because you are trying to feel that way, but because it would be the only natural response. You do not manufacture gratitude when something is truly yours. It arises on its own. So here is the practice. Stop trying to get. Stop trying to convince. Stop trying to make it happen. Instead, dare to assume it is already done. And let gratitude be the proof that you have made that assumption real. This is where so many people stumble. They try to feel grateful as a technique. They say the words, thank you, thank you, thank you. But underneath, they are still anxious. They are still checking the 3D. They are still waiting for permission from the outer world to feel the way they are trying to feel. And it does not work, because the feeling is not real. It is a performance. It is a mask over doubt. And consciousness always knows the difference. You cannot fool yourself. You cannot fake your state. But here is the good news. You do not have to. You do not have to force gratitude. You simply have to remember the truth. Your desire exists. It exists now, in this moment, in the realm of the invisible. It is as real as anything you can see or touch, more real, in fact, because the invisible is cause, and the visible is effect. So when you acknowledge that truth, when you sit with it, when you allow yourself to feel the reality of it, gratitude will come, naturally, quietly, without effort. And that is the kind of gratitude that creates, not the gratitude that begs, not the gratitude that hopes, but the gratitude that knows, the gratitude that rests, the gratitude that says, it is done, and I am thankful. In his book, The Law and the Promise, Neville shared story after story of men and women who achieved what seemed impossible by living in the end. And again, the common thread was not the technique they used. It was the state they entered. It was the feeling they sustained. And very often, that feeling was gratitude. They gave thanks before the fact. They felt the reality of their answered prayer before there was any outer evidence. And because they did, the evidence came. Not because gratitude is magic, but because gratitude is the natural tone of the state in which the thing is already yours. Now let me speak to something important. This practice is not about ignoring what is. It is not about pretending that circumstances do not exist. Neville never taught denial. He taught revision. He taught selection. He taught the primacy of consciousness. But he never said, close your eyes to the facts. What he said was, do not let the facts dictate your state. Do not let the outer world tell you who you are or what is possible for you. Instead, you dictate, you choose, you assume, and you persist in that assumption until the outer world yields. That is not dishonesty. That is dominion. That is creative authority. So when you feel grateful for something that hasn't happened yet, you are not lying. You are not in denial. You are exercising your power as a creator. You are standing firm in the consciousness of your desire fulfilled. regardless of what the senses report. And that is exactly what Neville meant when he said, "Walk by faith, not by sight." Faith is not blind belief. Faith is fidelity to the unseen reality. It is loyalty to your assumption. And gratitude is one of the highest expressions of that faith. Because when you thank God for what isn't here yet, you are saying, "I know it is mine. I know it is done. I do not need to see it to believe it. I believe it, and therefore I will see it." Let me give you another example. There was a man who wanted to move to a new city. He had no money. He had no job waiting for him. He had no job waiting for him. He had no logical path forward. But the desire was strong. It was clear. And he had been studying Neville for years. So instead of worrying, instead of figuring out how, he did something simple. Every night before sleep, he imagined himself in that city, not arriving there, not hoping to get there, but already there, living there, walking the streets, feeling the air. And every morning when he woke up, he said aloud, "Thank you for my life in this city. Thank you that I am here." It felt strange at first. It felt premature. But he persisted. He did not try to force the feeling. He simply reminded himself of the assumption. And gradually, naturally, the gratitude became real. It stopped being something he was doing and became something he was feeling. And once that shift happened, everything changed. Within a month, an opportunity appeared, an opportunity he could never have predicted. A door opened that did not exist the week before, and he walked through it. And now he lives in that city, not because he figured out how, but because he assumed it was done. He gave thanks for it, and he let consciousness do the rest. That is the pattern. That is the law. And it works the same way whether your desire is a city, a relationship, a sum of money, a state of health, or a version of yourself you have not yet embodied. The principle does not change. Assume it is yours. Feel from that assumption, and let gratitude be the natural expression of that inner knowing. Now I want to take you into the practice itself, because knowing this intellectually is not enough. You must do it. You must live it. You must make it your own. So let me walk you through this step by step, as though we are sitting together and I am guiding you into the state. Tonight, or right now if you are able, find a quiet place. Sit or lie down. Close your eyes. Take a slow breath. Let the outer world fade. You are not trying to make anything happen. You are simply going to acknowledge what is already true in consciousness. Now bring to mind your desire, not as something far away, not as something you are chasing, but as something that already is. See it clearly. Feel it near. Do not imagine it coming toward you. Imagine it already here, already present, already yours. Maybe you see yourself living from that desire. Maybe you simply feel the state it implies. It does not matter. What matters is that you accept it as real, not real because you can touch it yet, but real because it exists in consciousness, and consciousness is the only reality. Now, as you rest in that awareness, begin to let gratitude arise. Do not force it. Do not manufacture it. Simply allow yourself to feel thankful, thankful that this is yours, thankful that it is done. Thankful that you do not have to beg for it, or chase it, or prove yourself worthy of it. It is already a given. It is already established. You are simply reckoning it net. Let that gratitude move through your body. Let it soften your breath. Let it settle into your chest. You might say the words silently. Thank you. Thank you. Or you might simply feel the feeling. It does not matter. What matters is that the gratitude is real. That it comes from the place inside you that knows, not the place that hopes, but the place that knows. Stay here as long as you like. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour. There is no rush. You are not doing this to finish it. You are doing this to be it, to occupy the state of thanksgiving for the fulfilled desire. And the more you rest here, the more natural it becomes. The more you practice this, the more you realize that this is not a technique you are using. This is a state you are entering. And once you are in the state you are entering. And once you are in the state does the work. Consciousness does the work. You do not have to effort. You do not have to effort. You do not have to force. You simply have to remain faithful to the assumption. faithful to the gratitude. When you are ready, open your eyes. But carry that feeling with you. Do not leave it in the meditation. Let it color your day. Let it inform your thoughts. Let it shape your inner conversations. And whenever doubt creeps in, whenever the old state tries to reclaim you, return to gratitude, not as a tool to fix something, but as a reminder of the truth that your desire is already fulfilled in consciousness, the truth that you are not waiting for anything, the truth that you are living from the end, right now, in this moment. Do this daily. Do this nightly. Do this until. Do this until the gratitude is no longer something you practice, but something you are. And I promise you, the world will shift, not because you did something to it, but because you changed the state you are broadcasting from. And the world, being a mirror, must reflect that back to you. Now let me speak to why this matters beyond the single desire. Because yes, you can use this practice to manifest a job, a home, a relationship, a healing, and you should. Neville wanted you to prove the law to yourself. He wanted you to test it in the small things and the big things, so that you would know, beyond any doubt, that consciousness is the only reality. But there is something deeper happening here. Every time you feel grateful for what isn't here yet, you are rehearsing your true identity. You are practicing the awareness that you are not a creature of circumstance. You are not a victim of time. You are not at the mercy of facts. You are the operant power. You are the one who decides. You are the consciousness in which all things exist. And when you live from that awareness, when you claim that authority, when you give thanks for the invisible because you know it is more real than the visible, you step into your divine inheritance. Neville said again and again, you are God, not in some distant metaphorical sense, but truly, actually. You are the one being spoken of in all the ancient scriptures. You are the one who descended into limitation so that you might remember who you are. You are the one who imagines, and by imagining creates. And gratitude for the unseen is one of the clearest expressions of that power, because it declares, I do not need proof. I do not need permission. I do not need the world to confirm me. I know what is mine. I know what is real, and I give thanks for it now. That is not arrogance. That is awakening. That is the gradual remembering of who you have always been. And every time you practice this, every time you dare to thank God for what isn't here yet, you are shedding another layer of the old man, the man who waits, the man who doubts, the man who looks outside himself for validation, and you are putting on the new man, the man who knows, the man who assumes, the man who lives by faith in the unseen reality, and by that faith makes it seen. This is the path. This is the teaching. This is the promise. And it is available to you right now. Not someday when you are more spiritual. Not when you have read more books or attended more lectures. Right now, in this moment. You can choose to occupy the state of gratitude for your fulfilled desire. You can choose to live from the end. You can choose to live from the end. You can choose to thank God for what is not yet visible, because you know deeply that in consciousness it already is. And when you make that choice, everything changes, not slowly, not eventually, immediately, because you are no longer the person waiting for something to happen. You are the person for whom it has already happened, and that person moves through the world differently, speaks differently, thinks differently, and the world-obedient servant that it is must reflect that difference back to you. So I ask you now, what is your desire? What is the thing you have been wanting, chasing, hoping for? Stop chasing it. Stop hoping for it. Stop waiting for it. Stop chasing it. Assume it is already done, and begin to feel grateful for it. Not as a trick, not as a technique, but as the truth, as the recognition of what is already real in the only place that reality exists, which is consciousness. Do this tonight. Do this now. And do it every day until the gratitude is no longer something you try to feel, but something you cannot help but feel, because it is yours. It has always been yours. And now you know it. Thank you for what isn't here yet. Those words, which may have sounded strange or impossible when you first heard them, are now the foundation of your practice. They are the declaration of your authority. They are the voice of the Creator within you, acknowledging the invisible reality and calling it forth into form. Say them. Feel them, live them, and watch as the world reshapes itself to match the state you have claimed. This is not wishful thinking. This is not denial. This is the law. And the law is always. It is working now. It worked yesterday. It will work tomorrow. And you are the one who wields it, not through effort, not through struggle, but through assumption, through feeling, through the daring act of giving thanks for what has not yet appeared, because you know that in the realm that matters, it already has. Before we close, let me leave you with one more thought. In the Gospel of John, it is written, "Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me, and I knew that thou hearest me always." This was spoken by Jesus before he called Lazarus from the tomb. Before the miracle was seen, he gave thanks, not because he hoped it would work, but because he knew. He knew that the Father, which is consciousness, which is imagination, always hears, always responds, always fulfills, and he gave thanks in advance of the evidence. That is the pattern. That is the example. That is what you are being called to do. So tonight, when you close your eyes, when you enter into that quiet place within, do not beg, do not plead, do not ask. Instead, give thanks. Thank God for what is already done. Thank God for what is already yours, and rest in the certainty that consciousness, being the only reality, must outpicture what you are conscious of, must harden into fact what you have assumed, must reflect back to you the state you occupy. You are not a man seeking God. You are God seeking expression. Must reflect back to you the state you occupy. And the moment you realize that, the moment you claim that, the moment you live from that, everything you have ever desired is already at hand, not because you earned it, not because you deserve it, but because it is the natural inheritance of the one who knows who he is. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for daring to go deeper. Carry this with you. Prove it. And let gratitude for the unseen become the foundation of your daily life. Carry this with you. Practice it. Prove it, not just as a practice, but as a state of completion, a state of fulfillment, a state of creative authority. And as you do, you will discover what Neville knew and taught and lived, that all things are possible to him who believes, that the invisible is more real than the visible, that consciousness is the only reality, and that you, right now, in this very moment, are the creator of your world. Go now and give thanks for what isn't here yet, because in doing so, you make it so.